So welcome to the SLC3 Safety Forum, collaborative conversation on mental health and construction. My name is Michael Hargrave, and I am the Construction Safety Manager for BJC Healthcare, as well as an SLC3 board member and active chair of the Health and Safety Committee. And on behalf of the SLC3 Safety and Health and Safety Committee, we're pleased to see you this morning. Continuing with caution for our health and safety, this program is virtual and is being recorded so that you can come back and view it again at a later date. As always, we have a few housekeeping items to share with you this morning. First, please make sure you are muted. We hope you are also free from distractions to get the most out of this program. And should you want to ask a question, we do ask that you send them through the chat, and we will get to those at the end of the program session. We have allowed about 15 minutes to address any questions that come. And because this program is being recorded, a copy of today's presentation will be available after the forum. I want to quickly review our agenda today. As you know, we have a full panel here with us. I will make full introductions in a few minutes. And first, we're going to hear from Shannon Niles, and then we'll hear from the rest of our panel. And around 9:15, we're going to have our Q&A. And then lastly, Kelly Jackson, our Executive Director, will close out our meeting. So for those of you who don't know us, the SLC3 is a community of design and construction industry professionals with a common interest in the betterment of our region. Our planning committee has identified 4 key pillars for our organization: innovation, continuing education, equity empowerment, and all-inclusive workforce collaboration. Speaking of continuing education and collaboration, I would like to acknowledge our Health and Safety Committee. This committee is responsible for 2 forums each year, including this program today. And again, I am the active chair. Deborah Kemp with Kadeen is our co-chair. And thank you to our subcommittee for all the planning of this event today. I'm proud to be a member of this committee and encourage any of those interested in joining us to reach out to either me or to Kelly Jackson. As an additional benefit of your participation, this program has been developed to permit you to qualify for 1.5 professional development hours, or PDH, for the professional engineers, and 1.5 learning units, LUs, for those who are going through the American Institute of Architects. Documentation was sent to you and is also available on the resources page of the SLC3 website. We always seek your evaluations at the conclusion of each program. Please take a couple of minutes to answer a few quick questions. The program evaluations and the comments are used to prepare for future programming, as well as to determine the overall value of our education and networking programs for the year. We do take all evaluations seriously and always hope to improve on our programs. It's time again for annual and program sponsorships. If you're interested in supporting the SLC3 and gaining our best offered visibility, contact Kelly for more information. It's very affordable and is really a significant way to support us. Speaking of programs, this program is the 3rd one already this year. Our 2nd education event is Design Build 2.0. To design build or not to design build? Want to better understand the delivery methods and advantages of design build? This is packed with a panel of speakers you won't want to miss. Also this month, Tony Thompson is the keynote speaker for our diversity series. The program's title is The Insignificance of Minorities in the New Millennium. This is sure to be an interactive town hall and is free to all members. And we know we have a lot of anxious golfers out there waiting for this weather to change. Well, registration is open. Although we have added a 3rd course this year, we highly recommend getting your registrations in early. Don't wait, miss out. The date of the tournament is May 2nd, and teams will be due on April 2nd. Sponsorships are also available. Before our program begins, we want to take time to give special recognition to our annual training and education program sponsors. Our annual platinum sponsor is Kazeni Wagner. We appreciate their top-tier support each year. Our gold sponsors are McGrath and Associates, Ross and Barazzini, Kwame Building Group, and L. Keeley. Our silver sponsors are Farnsworth Group, Kaiser Electric, JF Electric, ABNA Engineering, OWH Architects, Custom Engineering, and Hush Blackwell. Thank you to all of our sponsors. We also have a special program sponsor today, PERIG. Thank you to PERIG for providing today's program sponsorship and continually advocating for health and safety in construction. We also want to provide a special thanks to the AGC for working with us on this program as well. And Brandon Flynn with the AGC is a part of our safety committee and of the AGC, as always, is a partner to the SLC3. Before I ask Shannon Niles with PERIG to share with you an important message, I wanted to kick off our program with a few words. So we're here today to discuss mental well-being, hear from an expert on the subject, and learn what approach and action some organizations are taking locally to develop programs to benefit their employees and help ensure that they are providing a foundation to address the whole worker safety and health. As an owner, my organization, BJC Healthcare, embraces and promotes the creation of a psychologically safe environment, an environment where people feel comfortable speaking up, sharing ideas, and recognize mistakes are opportunities to learn. In a psychologically safe environment, people feel safe from ridicule and punitive actions. This environment fosters a more comfortable space for voicing concerns, sharing suggestions for improvements, and encouraging problem solving. Additionally, at BJC, we adhere to Just Culture, a framework which provides a balance for accountability of the worker with organizational responsibility. We utilize the same framework followed for patient safety to create an algorithm to be used during incident investigations on construction projects. The algorithm acts as a roadmap to provide direction to ensure a worker's behavior is thoughtfully considered. Following an incident, we use it to determine if an individual's actions were reckless, at risk, or if there were systemic issues within the organization that led to the incident. This allows us to learn and make lasting corrections. Now it's time for Shannon Niles to share his special message with you. After, I will introduce the panel of speakers. Shannon, if you will.
Hi, I'm Shannon Niles. I'm the Safety Director for PERIG Corporation. And a lot of you have met me or know me as the Safety Director of PERIG Corporation, but you don't know my story of how I got here. So I'm going to give it to you. I started out in construction as a laborer. I learned how to operate equipment while laboring. At some point in time, I became an equipment operator. That's where my story really starts. One day I'm at work, we're digging a trench, I'm running the excavator, doing my thing. I swing around to dump some dirt, swing back around to the trench, and I see that our laborer had walked out of the trench box. He walked out of the trench box just as the bank started to cave in. The bank caved in, buried him from his neck down. At that point, I saw his face, I saw what was going on in his eyes, and there was nothing I could do to help him. After the cave in, I jumped off the machine, jumped into the trench, started to hand dig him out as fast as I could, and unfortunately, blood started coming out of his ears. I checked his pulse. He was dead. I dug a dead man out. When that happened, it changed my life. I will tell you, nothing was the same ever again for me. Still is not to this day. So when we talk about things that happen, things that can happen to affect your life and your path down your journey, I talk about this story because it's why I'm a safety director now. It is to protect people. It is to make sure that happens to no one else ever on my watch. It's breaking the stigma. You know, I was a construction worker. I was big, I was bad, I was tough. I didn't need any help. I could live through this. I didn't want nothing. I pushed people away. I was great. That's not true. It kept going, and in my head, I saw his face over and over and over again. I had to go to his funeral. At his funeral, his family's pointing at me going, there's the guy who killed my son, my family member, my dad, my uncle. I had to live through that. That was tough. I still thought I was too tough to get help. I thought I was too tough to talk to anybody about this. I went on trying to work, trying to live. And finally, my family tells me, you need help. You're angry, you're mad, you're not happy. Who knows what's going to happen to you if you don't talk to somebody or do something. So they helped me pursue personal help through a professional. By getting that personal help, I learned how to cope with this. I learned how to deal with this. I still to this day see this guy's face at times in my sleep or when I see a situation out on a job site. And I have to learn how to take that step back and understand a way to talk myself through it so that I don't break down or I don't do something that I shouldn't do. So again, this is about breaking that stigma of construction workers and people thinking they're too tough, they're too bad, that they don't need help, because that's where I was at. And by getting that help, I was able to function. It also changed my life. I went back to college, turned a minor from safety into a major in safety. I went out into the world and I became a safety director. I work hard every day to make sure that that doesn't happen to anybody else, and no one else has to live the way I live, seeing someone's face after watching them die and feeling responsible for it. So together, I want everybody on this call, and everybody in every company out there, to think we can break the stigma and we can make it so employees understand that they can ask for help. It's important that they ask for help, and it's not a bad thing to ask for help. So that's kind of my personal story of why I got into this and where I'm at and why this is such an important topic to me. I'm going to turn this back over to Michael Hargrave now.
Thank you, Shannon, for that sombering story. It's a history that no one wants to have to deal with, no one wants to have to live with. Certainly no one wants to experience on their project site, but it's all too true and too real. And many things like this happen throughout people's careers. You know, it's a lifetime. Well, now we're going to go on. Let's get started and discuss why we're here today. We're going to meet our speakers. I'm going to give a brief introduction, and then we'll let them self-introduce as they begin to speak. First, we have Cal Beyer, who's the VP of Workforce Risk and Worker Wellbeing for CSDZ. Cal has experience in the construction industry and is a longtime advocate for programs supporting mental well-being. Shannon Niles, you just heard speak, Safety Director for PERIC. Ricky Reams is the VP of Safety and Quality for Murphy Company. And Bo Cooper, who's the Safety Director at Alberici Constructors. I know most of the people in this meeting know the latter three, Cal being the first one here. Cal is our expert. And we have asked Cal Beyer to first define well-being versus mental health and why we are here today. And he will follow up again after the panel, share some of the experience with their wellness programs. Cal?
Thank you very much, Michael. Shannon, thank you for that incredible story. We call stories like that lived experience. I'm a construction risk and safety professional as well. Before I came to work for the Holmes Murphy Company, I was director of risk management for a hot mix asphalt and paving contractor in Washington State. I went to work for them in 2014 with the vision of baking mental health and suicide prevention into our safety and risk culture. And the story that you gave kind of mirrors my own experience. I've been involved in this topic for a long time. I came to the construction industry in 1996. And my vision there, Shannon, was much like yours. Do something about critical incidents. I'd been a public entity specialist and I had experience helping police, fire, emergency responders address the emotional needs of employees after critical incidents. We didn't have that in the construction industry. And so I was working in the Northeast after 9/11, and we offered assistance like EAPs or chaplain services. And people said, we got it, we're tough, we're construction, don't baby us. And a couple of years later, we had people share like you, the trauma was a lot. We experienced too much, it was overwhelming. And so then we got good at critical incident response as an industry. It still took us time. So the roots of this, Shannon, are very much like yours. And that's what grew into the movement our industry has embraced around mental health and well-being. And along the way, we've had suicide prevention. So a quick shout out to what you're doing in St. Louis. You have so many positive elements. In addition to these panelists, I'd like to just highlight and compliment my friend, Dr. John Gall. He's been active in this space. Dr. Anne-Marie Dale and others at Washington University Medical School. The research that's been done has been incredible. AGC of Missouri, tremendous leadership. Brandon Anderson is one of those individuals. And a quick shout out to McCarthy Building. Kristen Cantu was in Orlando this week, receiving an award from the National Association of Home Builders. So here, a big St. Louis-based commercial builder receiving national recognition for mental health advocacy, their Genuine Cares program. The last thing I want to just say quickly before I move in, all the elements are in place in St. Louis. It's no wonder you are a hotbed for addressing these topics of worker well-being. You have joint leadership from labor management. That's essential. You have strong local leaders who've emerged. You have owners, so SLC3, but you also have general contractors, the stakeholders from subcontractors, and you have collaborations among different associations. Like, that is just incredible when they collaborate instead of make it a competition. The biggest thing is the free sharing of resources. And Michael, your comments about just culture, like that could be a mic drop if that was embraced throughout the industry and elsewhere. So I want to just let you know, quick learning objectives. Why is workplace risk and worker well-being a workplace initiative? Historically, this has been taboo. We didn't talk about it in the workplace. Shannon is right. The first step starts with breaking stigma and then getting leadership support. You have to break down the stigma, because without that, you can't build the safety net that's going to help people get assistance, get support, and to know that it's okay to not be okay. But weaving this into safety, health, and HR is the secret sauce. It's when our cultures do change, they become more like that just culture. And I'll finish at the end with highlights, benefits of wellness and well-being programs. So I've mentioned a little bit around this taboo topic. I usually start presentations in the field by saying something like, this is a personal topic. It's a family matter, a community concern, and a societal problem. Why don't we talk about this in the workplace? Because of stigma. So that taboo nature we have of dealing with things privately. Too often we haven't seen asking for help as a sign of support. We haven't seen it as a sign of strength. We've seen it as a sign of weakness. And so all the things that Shannon said, but we have to recognize now is the time to act. With the pandemic, even though we were an essential industry and we continued working, our workers and their families are experiencing those unprecedented levels of stress and pressure, the anxiety. Anyone with underlying mental health conditions is going to feel especially pressured today. We've had grief, we've had rising cost of living, we've had financial pressures, we've had family members leave the workforce. So the stress means it's time to take action. I'd like to just say quickly, we all have mental health, and it does exist on this continuum from well to unwell. You can be mentally healthy without an existing mental health condition, but not be as mentally well as a person with a mental health condition. And so it's really important for us to recognize that our personal lifestyle, our personal choices, the corporate support that we have can help us build that safety net that can provide support for individuals. Few things going on in our industry I'm really happy to see. It's become more holistic. Back in 2014, we talked about suicide prevention. Many of us on the panel have said it was hard to not address mental health and well-being faster. And it took in the pandemic for us to talk about substance misuse and now the overdose issues that are impacting our industry. If you haven't seen this article from Engineering News Record, the digital issue was 9 pages long. And 2 individuals in that article were just featured as top 25 newsmakers by Engineering News Record. This was a collage. You'll see things from AGC of Missouri, your committee involvement was in this collage. So I just wanted people to know. And the reason this is a workplace issue is companies who say, Cal, I don't think we have a well-being problem. I don't think we have a mental health problem. We do, because the greater society, 75 to 80% of the individuals in the workplace will report being impacted by mental health themselves a loved one, or a family member. And the reality is 1 in 5 adults have an underlying existing mental health condition. 1 in 6 children, and that's rising. So this is really important to break the stigma, talk about this at home. And by talking about it at home, paves the way for you to have conversations in the workplace. These mental health conditions in the workplace are usually anxiety, depression, and substance misuse. Those are like the 3 that I typically have seen and have helped people with. They're more common than physical health conditions like cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and cancer. And yet we don't have the same emphasis around prevention and intervention. The sad part is, for individuals with a mental health condition, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, NAMI, reports only 44% of people get help. 56% of people don't. So like Shannon shared, we delay that intervention. For some of us, that challenge is really problematic. By then, we could have lost a job, we could have disrupted our family, become estranged from our children, and caused all sorts of complications. So I want to share with you a really important statistic because it underscores why making this a workplace imperative allows more people to get help. The traditional methods aren't effective. We've had to make this a workplace priority. That same group, NAMI, reports an average delay of 11 years from the onset of symptoms to proper diagnosis to starting a treatment for mental health. Imagine if we waited 11 years with a toothache or a separated shoulder or a dislocated ankle. We have to treat mental health like we treat physical health. And what I want people to know is that depression is real. It is the leading cause of disability in our country, and it will be in all developing countries. And the reason this is so important is people with mental health conditions frequently have comorbidities with chronic health conditions. So mental health and obesity, mental health and cancer, the screenings decrease. So we need to think about this whole person, and we need to be able to treat both physical and mental well-being. And that's what I love about well-being. It helps break down that stigma. So when Shannon uses that word stigma, what's important is a lot of times it's invisible, but it's real, like a brick wall. I developed this slide last year after partnering with the Ironworkers. I interviewed a vice president from the Ironworkers who shared his personal story of addiction, more than 10 years for him and his family. He was first hurt at work. He took white pills the doctor said would make him better, and his life spiraled out of control. His name is Sean Neely. He's one of the bravest leaders I've known. Shannon, like your story, he said, I'm going to do something to help others. And I asked him in that interview, so Sean, why is it so important for you to share your story? He said, Cal, because we got to keep taking down that wall, one brick at a time. And as he spoke, I was kind of fighting back tears welling in my eyes. My voice was going to crack the next time I talked, but I saw words on this brick wall. And I'm like, these are the issues that challenge us as workers and our families and our neighbors, classmates. There's touch of this is enormous. And so that's why we're talking about it. Now, for years, it was hard to break that stigma. I was afraid of sharing my own personal experience because I felt like I'll probably lose my job. I had the fear of repercussions. I'll be marginalized, I'll be minimized. I didn't start as a laborer like Shannon did. I came into this as a safety and risk management professional. I didn't have those hard skills that I could have fallen back on. So for me, I was like, hey, what I could do is message this as a risk management. I called it human capital risk management. If you take care of the people, they'll take care of your business and your companies, and your results will be better. I started talking about this caring culture years before I think our industry was ready. However, again, I'm proud to see what we've done. We're weaving this into our workforce development initiatives, AGC of America, the culture of care, organizations nationally joint labor management trusts, other associations, SLC3. You're building this in to workforce development. You're building it into diversity, equity, inclusion, and the belonging programs. Your just culture that I've been hearing about, Michael, is going to be the force multiplier. When more people embrace a comprehensive approach to psychological safety, good things are going to happen. We can make our industry one of choice, where people will come to because we care for people, we care for their families, we care for their development as professionals. And one way we're going to do that is shift from traditional wellness to well-being. The wellness really looks at the physical health. It still treats us like machines. We need to treat people like people, and the whole person comes to work, even with our baggage, even with our past history, even with our experiences. And we have a high degree of trauma. We have a high degree of existing mental health. In the construction industry, almost 20% of our workforce experiences some degree of substance misuse. And alcohol historically has been the elephant in the room that we weren't talking about. And so I'm really proud to see our industry is responding, tackling those issues. When we move from physical wellness to well-being, we have to look at solutions. Drug testing alone is not enough. We need to find ways to educate employees, like we've done on suicide prevention, for substance misuse, and even let people know about strategies for opioid overdose prevention. The foundation is that caring culture, that just culture that Michael referred to. Basic elements have been that respectful workplace, no bullying, no harassment, no discrimination. Building out empathy for our people. Empathy is the secret sauce. It's the way we connect with people at the heart. And if we can connect at the heart, we can connect to the brain. When someone knows how much you care, they're more apt to find you credible, believable. They'll respect you. They'll follow your leadership example. Again, Michael nailed psychological safety. I'm going to save a few minutes, Michael, because the just culture takes that to the steroid level. And I already mentioned the power of diversity and inclusion. Psychological safety makes our workplace and our job sites more inclusive, more respectful, more sensitive to the reality of our workforce differences. And those differences become our strengths. So I want to highlight, when I went to work for Lakeside Industries in Issaquah, Washington, we had 700 employees roughly. We were a paving contractor. I had the benefit of coming in from the outside, and I was able to transform our culture. I used a book called Safety 24/7, and probably the biggest transition was, we've got to change the thought of getting people home safe at the end of a shift. Most of our companies believe in safety 24/7, but to me, that implied, if we only care about safety that way, we're missing the opportunity to help those individuals who are suffering in silence. So I reframed safety 24/7 and said, safety never sleeps. We know that. We're a 24/7, 365 operation. We need to address safety and well-being around the clock. So the phrase that I came up with a gentleman from Colorado, he's the COO of RK Mechanical. John Kinning is his name. I met with him, I shared what I was doing. He said, Cal, I couldn't agree more. We kind of coined this phrase, it's not enough to get people home safe at the end of a shift. It's more important to get people back to work safe from home. And that was 2015. That took this to the next level, and people started believing. And then we've worked as an industry about what's under the hard hat, what's under the safety vest, what's under the tool belt. Those are really good phrases, and they reflect what we're talking about. Last year, National Construction Safety Week had a theme called Committed to Holistic Safety. And that was as close as we've come to an industry to marry physical and the mental well-being. We need to recognize workers come to work with a total experience. our past history, current challenges, past trauma, current needs, and those can lead to distractions. Those can lead to pressures. If we think people can turn it on and turn it off, we're wrong. Even when we see stone-faced employees with arms crossed looking at us, we have to recognize we can approach them with sensitivity. We can let them know that we care. And with the personal relationships we build on job sites, we can break down the stigma, we can break down those barriers, we can have honest conversations. When we let people know it's okay to not be okay, and we teach them how to be their brothers and sisters keeper, whether you're a union or non-union contractor, that phrase is the essence of that just culture to me. And you can't have good mental health without strong physical health. Conversely, strong mental health is an influencer on our physical health. They have to go hand in hand. So your program today, talking about well-being, is the perfect launching pad for your next evolution as an industry in St. Louis. Michael, again, thank you for the just culture. You took that to the next level. You know, you'll have a copy of these slides. My colleagues and I developed these statements. Michael's already reflected them. If you haven't read Psychological Safety, Amy Edmondson wrote a book called The Fearless Organization. It is an incredible book. And you'll see an organization called Leader Factor. They develop people talking about stages of psychological safety. Those would be the two references that I can give you. So really quickly, my time will come to a close here. I just want to let you know, the HR directors about 10 years ago were right. They started talking about engagement. They talked about disengagement. So here's one way to think about this from the lens of safety. We know the impact of absenteeism and chronic tardiness on a job site. We know what it does to morale. We know how it impacts productivity. Imagine those individuals with distractions who are at work but not physically or mentally engaged in the work. They call that presenteeism. It's been understudied in our industry, but it's been shown to be the source of many near hits, serious injuries and fatalities, despite major investments by owners, generals, subcontractors in safety, in training, in orientation and onboarding, all the things that we're doing to protect our workers. If we address well-being, we can reduce the risk of presenteeism. So again, you'll see these in the slides. I've given you more information because I wanted to share some resources. I've mentioned this. The last thing I want folks to know, if there's time at the end, I'm going to share with you high-level summary from the mental health and well-being survey in the construction industry from last year. And with that, Michael, I'm going to send this back to you so we can get to the panel. Thank you very much for this opportunity to join you today.
Thank you, Cal. It's a pleasure to have you with us today. And we respect and appreciate all that you're doing and all that you've brought to the table today to share with us.
You're welcome.
Next, I'd like to introduce Bo Cooper from Alberici, the safety director. And Bo's going to take a few minutes to tell us about their program and what they have going on. Bo?
Thank you, Michael. You know, Cal, man, you covered it all and in a very short period of time and made it make total sense. For those who don't know, well, first, I'm the safety director for Alberici. I share responsibilities with a colleague, Kathy Dobson. I've been with Alberici 21 years, all in the safety department, and I travel around to projects around the country, large projects. Right now, I'm in Kings Bay, Georgia, a big submarine base where we're working on a dry dock project, 700 people working 2 shifts. I'm sure I walked by people yesterday, just like Shannon was, feeling down, feeling distracted, feeling a little hopeless. They're all around us on every single project. Real quick to just tell you the story how Alberici got involved, or I got involved with it and brought it to St. Louis. Alberici is part of a group called the Construction Industry Safety Institute. It's large general contractors, international. We meet every 2 years, just the CEOs and the safety directors, and we talk about a safety topic. In the past, we've talked about cell phone use. We've talked about distracted workers. We've talked about OSHA and some of the regulations. It's usually technical. In Chicago in the fall of 2018, I had no idea what the agenda was. And I sit down at the desk and where I am, and I've got my pad there, ready to listen to the information. And in walks Cal. He was a guest from Alan Myers, who was sponsoring the event. And Cal immediately started talking about the problem of suicide in the construction industry. Now, I want to tell you how I personally felt, because there might be people on this call here who might have had the same reaction I did. You know, I was polite and I listened. I began doodling on the pad, taking a few notes, and I was thinking to myself, how am I ever going to talk to the people that work for Alberici, our labor, force? How am I going to ever be able to talk to them about something as sensitive as this? We can put a poster up on the wall, we can do a toolbox talk or what have you, but man, Cal's talking about going deep on all of this. I agree with it, and I think something should be done, but I left Chicago with a stack of information that Cal gave us, and took it back to St. Louis. Part of the program was we heard from an individual who had jumped from the San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge and survived, and that was extremely powerful. The room was very quiet when this gentleman finished his talk. I took this stack of information back to St. Louis and put it on my desk and do what I typically do, kind of look at it and procrastinate. Other things come up, and I shoved it off to the side for the rest of the year, really. In January and February, I started thinking 2019, I should really just roll up my sleeves and dig into this and have a couple of toolboxes that just Alberici could use. I started thinking about the approach, and it was pretty awkward. And I just nothing came to mind. On the 28th of March over in Kansas City, there was a drywaller subcontractor, 25 years old. His name is Dakota O'Sullivan. He was at work on the Lowe's Grand Hotel, downtown Kansas City. And he fell at work. He fell off the 23rd floor. That was the news that the safety directors got. We're all a pretty tight network, and we pass along alerts and pass along news as it happens. And so initially I was thinking this was just a fall. Checking social media and hearing a couple other things, it looked like he chose to end his life at the work site that day. And I dug around and I found out that he had been arguing with someone during lunch break. And right after lunch break, he quietly just kind of went away from his work on the ground floor and went up to the 23rd floor. He knew where there was an opening to a leading edge, and he gave his cigarettes away to someone up there, and chose to take his own life by jumping off an edge at the 23rd floor. I looked at the pile of information, and it started to look back at me, and I thought, I can't procrastinate anymore. I got to do something here. I started thinking about we have a wonderful marketing department. Shannon Carroll is an artist there in our department, and I went to her. I said, we got to come up with some posters about this. I guess I'll write a toolbox talk or two. And we need to get the phone number for the suicide hotline out there. I thought that was the answer. Get that out there. And then I started thinking, no one's gonna want to be seen near a poster copying that number down. Let's give them the number. Let's give them the number on a card. And then I thought, well, let's be active about this and give them something that's kind of going to last. And so I just had this idea to give them a poker chip. You see, just one element of the campaign that we started. And initially, it just had Alberici logo on it and the number on it. And I said, thanks, Shannon. I see our logo on there. I see the number. That's exactly what we want. And she said, yeah, but be careful. You got to run this by, everybody high up at Alberici. And I thought she's right. They probably won't want marketing, around this. So I picked up the phone and called Matt Cowell at the AGC of Missouri. At the time, he was doing Brandon Anderson's job. I didn't know Matt too well, but I explained what was going on, sent him some of Cal's information. And man, the next day, I called Dr. Embry Dale, and Matt and I went and met with her and her team. Dr. John Gall got on board, And within a week, really, the poker chip with the number on it idea to give one to every person had really developed into the genesis of the first campaign of its type right there in St. Louis. None of it would have been possible without Dr. John Gall, Barry Stelzer, over at the Carpenters, Anne Marie Dale and her team. And so we started collaborating, and by the fall of 2019, we had a good program together. We were going to do it in 1 week. We had a different toolbox talk for each week. We had the poker chips. We had posters that we would put up in the porta-johns that had a QR code on it that would take it to a web page from the AGC of Missouri. We put them there because we wanted to be in private, and we started, and I don't want to say we didn't know what we were doing, but I was still very, very, very reluctant, and I was still very much bought into the stigma situation around it that I believed was out there. And I got up in front of about 600 people at SLU Hospital. Dr. Gall was there, Barry was there, Anne Marie Dale was there, and I just came out and said, I'm going to talk about something I haven't talked about before in front of a bunch of people, and it's very personal. So, I want you to just listen to what I have to say. And I went in and I started talking about some of the data that talks about why construction workers are 4 times the national average person to choose to take their own lives, and what a problem that is, and how we as general contractors were failing the workforce to look at total well-being. Dr. Gall got up there and said things much better than I could. At the end, it was a very quiet crowd. That's one thing I noticed. When you give these safety talks in front of big groups, people shift around. You can tell they're looking at their phones. This group was different. It was very, very quiet. And at the end, there was a little applause. People started coming up to us and saying, "It's about time. Thank you for doing this. I should have heard this 2 years ago. My nephew was going through blah, blah, blah." I was wrong. The stigma that I felt and built into it, to Cal's message in Chicago, when I took it back, and so I was dead wrong. I just I was my own. I got in my own way, I guess. And as soon as the triggering event happened in Kansas City in March, and then the team came together, it is what it is today. And I hear now that the AGC of Missouri has spoken to the National's looking at it. We're going to go out and affect a bunch of people. Brandon Anderson and I were back here in Georgia in November, and we talked to 800 construction workers here on this site. It's just great to be part of a collaborative effort of something that's so important. And I can tell you, in 21 years with Alberici, being involved in this group has been the greatest professional accomplishment I think I could say I was involved in. Don't let yourself hold you back if you haven't started doing anything like this. Listen to what Cal says. Listen to how we roll it out. There's something in there for you to use, and we're all happy to help. I'm proud to be part of this panel, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Bo. Again, we appreciate all of that. We recognize the struggles that we all face with mental well-being and getting away from that stigmatism. That's part of the reason we're here today. Next, I'd like to introduce Ricky Reams from Murphy Company, Vice President, Safety and Quality. Ricky, the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you. Again, very excited to be here to talk about this subject. It's very personal to me personally and Murphy Company as a whole. So our story goes back a little bit further as we started to address the idea of total worker health, going back really to 2014, 2015. We started really coming up with the theory or the concept of how we wanted to approach total worker health. And our first campaign was really centered more around, it was actually titled Eat Well, Live Well, Be Well, which we still have that campaign today. It was really to let employees know that we care about them 24 hours a day, not 8 hours a day. But the focus at the time was really more on their physical health, their diet, their exercise, even things into financial assistance, things like that we knew affected employees. There was really no aspect of mental health or nowhere near the thought of suicide prevention at that time. We created a monthly newsletter, a wellness newsletter that goes out to all employees. Some great articles in there on all of those subjects. And that was sort of the start of our journey that we called Total Worker Health. In 2018, we had a really significant event. We had an employee die by suicide in early 2018. The employee had left the job site within about an hour earlier than that, before this incident happened. Afterwards, talking to employees, talking to coworkers, we started to learn a lot about issues that employee was having, both what sounded like some mental issues, family issues, and I think we were all sort of at the time saying, what do we do? How do we address this? And it took quite a while before we got there. And honestly, we'll get into a little bit of Bo and the AGC and how they approach this, but it was really not until we got in front of them that we really had a clear picture of where we wanted to go. We did update some things, and as we got into 2018, we started transitioning a little bit more, recognizing the drug and alcohol addiction issues, the opioid issues. So we started advertising more our EAP plan, our employee assistance program, adding sections in addiction into that wellness newsletter, and a few toolbox talks and events out. But again, still nothing directly going towards mental health. In 2019, I believe it was at an AGC meeting when Bo and Dr. John Gall presented on this subject, diving really into mental health and specifically into the numbers, the issue with suicide in the construction industry. And man, it was a life-changing moment for me. It really, I know from a personal level, whether it's hit me, I had a very, very close friend that was a laborer that died by suicide probably 10 years earlier. And everything I heard that day just immediately took me back to that moment in time when that happened. That friend had been at my house 2 or 3 days prior to dying. And he was having a hard time. He'd been laid off, was having some financial issues. He was going through a divorce, was really worried about his kids and what that, the whole divorce process for those of us that have been through it. He was depressed. He was at my house at a day that there was probably 10 of us friends that were there watching a football game, a Rams game at the time, maybe right before when they were still here. And I specifically remember him leaving, and the last thing somebody bringing up, hey, what's wrong with Jeff? And we were, I think everybody was like, he's going through a divorce. He's a little down right now. That's kind of where we left it. It's so sad for me to say that. I never called him after that. I never texted him after that. We never said, are you okay? Do you need help? Quite honestly, I wouldn't have known where to send him at the time. So it just really hit me that, God, I wish I knew then what I know now. I know that's easy to say. So I left that meeting that day very energized on where we wanted to go. It's still been a little bit of a slow journey. After that, in 2019, we again, we sort of jumped in a little bit slow, not sure how it would be received, by the construction industry. How do we get this message out? So the first thing we did is we kind of followed the AGC guide there. We had a week stand down during Mental Health Awareness Week. We did a lot with every one of our job sites. We put a lot of Murphy specific information out there. But at the time we knew this isn't enough. What do we do to step this up going forward? So in 2020, we kind of updated that and we did a full month dedicated to mental health and suicide prevention, and really got more activity. We had more speakers, a lot more involved process. As we kind of rolling into 2021, we again sort of did the same thing. We updated in our wellness newsletter. We started putting in a mental health corner where we had a different article every month in there that went out to employees about mental health or suicide prevention, addiction. anything along those lines. And again, we're nowhere near. In 2022, we really wanted to take this to the next level. So we added mental health and suicide awareness into our life-saving commitments campaign. So for Murphy Company, for probably 10 years, we've had a life-saving commitments campaign. We put out a life-saving commitments calendar on an annual basis. And each month we focus on those risks in the construction industry, specifically our industry, or our crafts, on those things that are causing SIF type injuries. And by SIF, we mean serious injury or fatality, that those risks could lead to a serious injury or fatality. And as we really started looking at that calendar and the data on it, and looked at the data on suicides in our industry, you know, we talk about the Focus 4 and all of these other major risks that we face. There are more construction workers that die by suicide annually than all other workplace fatalities combined. It's astonishing when you look at that. So what meets that SIF definition more than mental health and suicide prevention? I don't think anything could. So we updated our calendar, and when we looked at it at first, we thought, you know, what month do we want to really focus on and take this to the next level? And through that conversation, we changed and said, no, it's not going to be a month. We added mental health as a topic on every single month of the year. So we are going to dedicating a week, a month, where every communication, Toolbox Talk, everything that we put out then is going to be dedicated to one of these subjects. And we've got a well planned out 2022 to address that, so that we can keep that in the forefront at all times. One of the things we talk about is how difficult this is to have the conversation, to start the conversation. You know, I think the more that we have it out there, the more that we talk about it, the more that we share our stories and our pain and our experiences, the more comfortable it gets. We want this to become part of normal conversation that people are comfortable having. So the more we can get that out there, the better. So we're really happy with the campaign that we think that we have out there this year, but we still know it's not enough. I really think we're just at the beginning. The way I told my team the other day is right now we're still just starting the conversation, but we've really scraped the surface of what the solution is. So with the help of all the wonderful people on this panel, the support that we have from the AGC and our other organizations, SL33, we're excited to keep moving forward to this and see what we can do every year to expand this program. So that is kind of the Murphy story on where we're at. So I'll pass it back over to you, Michael.
Thank you, Ricky. Again, it's always good to hear that, you know, we've been looking at this as these issues over time, and it's slowly developing. We can hear the story over and over. You know, it's like, are we ready for it? And I think it gets back to the fact that we're well beyond ready. I think it's something that needs to come out into the open more. So now I'd like to go ahead and turn this back over again to Shannon Niles. Shannon, you can share his story about what they're doing over at PERIC. Shannon?
All right, thank you. And again, I'm Shannon Niles. I'm the safety director here at PERIC Corporation. This journey started for PERIC quite a while ago with well-being, very similar to Murphy's story, actually. And it's morphed into a lot more. And I also want to thank Bo Cooper for his efforts in bringing this to light in the St. Louis market. I was a big part of the AGC Safety Committee back then when he brought that in, and we formulated the other committee to do this. And Shannon Carroll, who worked for Alvarisi at the time, and all her work and efforts in putting into this. Based on that journey, I can remember the first time I held a suicide prevention stand down in 2018-19. There was 400 construction workers at the stand down, and I was going through the safety meeting and talking about the stuff that was going on. I hadn't yet been willing to share my story that I shared this morning because I just started sharing that last year. But at one point during that meeting, I asked how many people in this group have been affected by someone committing suicide, death by suicide. And 75% of the people in that group raised their hands. And when the meeting was over, you know, we spent 45 minutes in Ballpark Village talking about this topic. And when the meeting was over, I wasn't sure how long I was going to be there. worker after worker, employee after employee kept coming up and telling me their story and talking to me about how important it is and what it is. And so I took that, and unfortunately I didn't know what to do with it. It's kind of like Bo. HR was handling most of this stuff at Perrick, and it was important, and they were doing the EAP and all that type of stuff. And the next year we continued with the monthly suicide prevention toolbox and that type of stuff, although HR was doing wellness stuff. And then in 2021, it was brought up that, hey, this needs to be part of our safety program. So HR and safety, myself, got together, and we started formulating a committee to develop what we're going to do here at Perrick. And so in 2021, September was a huge campaign again for suicide prevention. And then I believe it was October and November, we had a campaign of culture of care. And as we're looking at this, I was like, you know what? Culture of care leads right into wellness. You know, you don't know what affects a person and what little things in their life give them a hesitancy to join a group or to be a part of something or have a conversation that maybe they need to have to make themselves better. So our committee started working on that pretty hard, and we are really in our infancy of this. A lot of things we're doing come from where Bo Cooper and Alvarez have been, where McCarthy's been, where Rick Reams and Murphy are. You know, we are a close-knit group. We all talk. We pick up the phone and call each other when we need help or we want to develop these programs, all the stuff that Cal Byers put out. So where we're at, we've developed the committee, and we have a good committee. We've got a cross section of office and field employees in that committee, because here's one of the biggest problems we're still facing. How do we reach the guys in the field, the guys and gals in the field, sorry, employees in the field? It's important that we reach them. I mean, it's a little easier for us to reach the employees in the office through email and through this, but our journeymen and journeyman carpenters and laborers, they don't always read every email you send out. So that's one of our questions. How are we going to reach them? That's why we have field members in the committee. So what we're doing, you know, Rick mentioned monthly safety meetings. All right, we've dedicated a week a month also to safety and health, our mental health awareness. We send out a safety topic for everybody to read. Our employee newsletter, we did a very similar thing. We have a mental health topic every month when that goes out. EAP hard hat stickers. So all the phone numbers on a hard hat sticker that can go inside your hard hat. We've asked our IT to push out our EAP numbers to all company phones. Looking at developing a t-shirt for mental health, so that when our workers are wearing our Perrick logo out there on the job site, they're also got a message about mental health on them. Orientation. We're not just stopping there. Every employee that goes through orientation at Perrick is going to learn about our EU program and the mental health side and the wellness side of safety, office and field. But we're not even stopping it there. We're putting it in our on-site safety orientation, so every subcontractor gets a taste of it and understands they can reach out to an EAP or an MAP, or they can come to this person within Perrick or wherever to get help. So we're developing it through all our orientation, so we reach every worker that comes on our job sites. Monthly socials. We have a monthly social where we talk about what's going on in Perrick now. There will be a message on culture of care and mental health awareness during that. We're looking at training opportunities. The Construction Safety Alliance has Living Works training, working through how we can get that out to all our foremen and supervisors, and then taking a select group of people that are interested in going to a next level of training, and they can be communicators for us so that their numbers out there. So if an employee wants help, needs help, or doesn't know where to get help, they can reach out to the communicators, and we can listen to them, we can talk to them, but we can get them to the right person or the right professional service to help them. One thing I can say is, it's no matter how big or small the issue is, what happens at your house or what's going on in your life, you just may need to talk about it to somebody. It may not even need to be a professional, We let them know that anyone on our committee is someone they can call if they just want to share some information and have someone to listen to them. So that's a big part of this. And then we can help them along the way. This is a challenging journey. When I say breaking the stigma, you know, it is a stigma and it's a challenge, but we're trying to get there. And it's hard for me, but I continue to work through it. And I have a great support system here at PERIC through our HR department and this committee that's helping us develop it. But we want everyone to know that this is a living document in our company. It's going to continue to develop. It's going to continue to change. Where we're at today is not where we plan to be tomorrow. We're going to keep doing it, and we're going to work together as a team to promote this within our company and all the subcontractor markets that we touch. So wrapping this up, we want everyone to know there's options out there, and we're listening. And we're willing to take advice from any company that has a program that wants to share what they're doing. We'll share our program and share what we're doing with others, as we're doing right now, right here. That's why we're a team. In safety, I call it R&D, rip off and duplicate. If you need it, we're going to share it because that's how we help people. One of the other things we're doing, we have the AGC mental health cards right here. Don't know if you can see those. We have those in every one of our conference rooms. We're asking people to take those cards before a meeting starts, have someone select one, read the question, and just have a brief conversation about mental health safety or the topic that's on there. If they're not comfortable with that topic, they can select another card. But it's a way to start conversations. It's what we're doing. It's what we're trying to do. We're going to keep developing this program. We're going to keep asking other contractors and other industries what they do. I can honestly say Michael Hargrave's Just Culture or BJC's Just Culture, I was experienced that on projects with them, and it's a very good program. I like using it when we're on their projects, and we've developed some of that within our company also. So that's kind of our story and where we're at and what we're doing. It's a personal topic for me. It's a personal topic for a lot of people. We've asked employees who have stories similar to mine if they'd be willing to share. We're still trying to figure out how to deliver them, but we actually have employees reaching out saying, hey, I'd like to share my story, but I'm going to need help. So that's another thing we're looking at doing. How do we share the stories within the company to keep it private and to their wishes, but let them share their story similar to mine. A 5-minute version of this is why I needed help, this is what happened, and this is the help that I got. So there's a lot we're doing, a lot we're trying to do. We keep working towards this, and it's never going to stop, but we will keep moving forward. And I appreciate everybody who supported us and brought this to the St. Louis market in order to help companies like us start our journey down the path. Thank you, Michael. I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Shannon. We appreciate it, and appreciate all the effort that you're doing to try to break down that stigmatism, as with all the members of our committee here. And I do want to take just a brief moment to let everybody who's watching, listening, and participating today know that you can always reach out to the safety committee of the SLC3. If you want to talk about ways to implement programs, ideas that you've got, you want to share what you were doing as an organization, or if you're looking for help to get started, the SLC3 Safety Committee is here. We want to help. We want to help develop this. And I'd like to turn the floor back over to Cal Beyer for some closing notes.
Thank you very much, Michael. Panelists, you guys amaze me what you're doing. The spirit in St. Louis is alive and well. It's incredible, the power of collaboration. I've been seeing and hearing, and I have had people from time to time say, Cal, why didn't you come to St. Louis? I'm like, I wasn't needed. You had all the elements in place and the leadership that is already in place. I went to where there were leadership gaps and tried to help organize groups like you. I have been a huge promoter of what Matt and Brandon, Len and Steve have done with the AGC of Missouri. And it's really cool when organizations can celebrate those successes. So, you know, I just want to compliment each one of you for your leadership and then the collective spirit to take this to the industry. You've made a huge dent. Even when we talked about this panel, we were talking about how this is shared, it's being reproduced. The way you've made that resources so free and available is powerful. So if you haven't seen this mental health in construction survey, it was coordinated with the Center for Workplace Mental Health. And we did use the Construction Financial Management Association. They were the group that launched the Construction Industry Alliance for Suicide Prevention back in October of 2016. The reason we went there is we knew we would get C-suite participation, and it was very well responded to. There's detailed data, but I wanted people to know we're not going to go through this today just to save time. We really want to encourage your questions, your comments. Please use the chat. If you have questions for any of the panelists, please use this opportunity. But the survey was constructed around these 4 elements, and you heard each of the panelists discuss those elements: leadership engagement, creating a mentally healthy organizational culture, raising mental health awareness, and enhancing access to services and supports. So what's powerful, for years, we've talked about these 3 V's. And again, each of the panelists talked about their visible leadership support. They vocalized how it's being broadcast throughout their organization and now sharing with the industry. Each one of you shared vulnerability. Those 3 V's are the core elements needed to have this become vertical in your organizations, where people hear senior leaders of their companies share their personal stories, their lived experience, their commitments to mental well-being. People will realize it's true. It is okay to not be okay. Help is available, support is available. People will lean in when they see you demonstrate those 3 V's. So that one is just too important not to cover. But you're going to see here some areas. Where do we go next? I want to let people know on May 17th and 18th in Denver, there's going to be the first nationwide summit. It's called Construction Working Minds. Dr. Sally Spencer Thomas has this program with the Johnson Center for Depression at the Colorado Medical School, and we're sharing information on that session. The 17th is going to be a train the trainer for suicide prevention training. Day 2 will be featured speakers, breakouts, exhibits, panels, and an opportunity to share information. It would be awesome to have your group and your committee with a table of resources to just populate all other groups. The one big challenge will continue with alcohol. Our industry does struggle with that. Our industry events are centered frequently around alcohol, finding ways to have alcohol-free. More associations, the Iron Workers, Trade Women Build Nations, there are others, NAWIC, are all looking at opportunities to have events that will be recovery friendly. So that's where we're going with this movement, and it will be that recovery friendly workplace. So I want to let you know, like in the slides that you'll receive will be the link to this survey, but you'll see some of the summary. We were really deliberate about capturing examples of how to integrate and weave in mental and physical well-being into our HR and employee benefits, into safety and health. There's not one program. This is a process. You heard the panelists talk about continuous improvement. And it's a journey. Love that expression. I'm glad our industry embraced that with safety and zero injuries years ago. And I think that's the healthy approach. If we wait for the perfect program, that time never comes. And so we have to get this information out there. And I think we're all still concerned. As much as we've done in the last 4 to 7, 10 years, we still feel like we're only scratching the surface. But together we can do more. And this panel, proud to be here today. Thank you. So you'll see examples on both the HR and the benefits, the safety and health side. One path I want to share in EAP is not enough. EAPs historically have had low utilization. Brandon asked me, Brandon Anderson from AGC of Missouri, asked me to do a recorded message on how to maximize the impact of your EAP. We can share that through this forum, if people would find that helpful. But how you launch and promote your EAP will drive the utilization. It's hard to have an effective, private, confidential support system without well-tuned EAP. So that video, I think, will be helpful. The last thing I wanted to share quickly, these were examples of best practices other companies had done since the onset of the pandemic. You heard your panelists give you many of the examples that they've done. These are 15 more examples of what other companies have done. And I could update this list probably with another dozen new things that were shared by your panelists today. So as I think about concluding this panel, I think I could have listened to you guys talk all day. So I want to just kind of highlight one thing you've seen. We've deliberately moved away from talking only about physical wellness. We're moving away from talking only about mental health. The words worker well-being resonates really well. It's a way to break down stigma. Years ago, we didn't have a choice. We had to start somewhere. We didn't really have enough examples of companies with wellness programs to see how they worked and if they were effective. We didn't really have functional EAPs across the board. We started with suicide because it was a known crisis. Even before there was data, we jumped in. Our industry is leading the way for other high-risk industries. We have an opportunity to do that with well-being. So what I want us to summarize, it's that whole person view of the worker. It's looking at us as a whole being and looking at us with our existing background, experiences, trauma, mental health, substance misuse, and looking at the impact it has on our ability to focus and concentrate and to perform those tasks. As people, there's a social side of work. When we build this whole person view, it has people want to support one another. That concept of being my brother and sister's keeper, it's not uncommon for each of us to experience within a week of people seeing information, people reaching out to those folks who are more isolated, rejected, alone on job sites. It's not uncommon, as each of the panelists said, people coming forward to want to share their story. That's where the magic happens, when people look out for one another. I want you to know, like, these are really hard times. And so us sharing this information is only going to make a difference is each person today takes this back to their sphere of influence, personal, organizational, community. And if we lean in and share, make ourselves vulnerable, it's amazing what happens. So one thing that's always been sad to me is when we talked about mental health, it should mean the absence of mental unwellness. But we always associate, when we hear mental health, mental illness. So even when we try to do well by talking about mental health, for many of us, it's been a negative, stigmatized word or phrase. When we go with well-being, we're able to break down that barrier. And so what's powerful in that mental health survey, you'll see shame and stigma are number one. 78% of the reason people don't get help. 55% fear negative consequences, and almost 50% don't know how to use their benefits. Those are the areas that we can improve on. The other things I really like about well-being is it does allow us, when necessary, to promote privacy and confidentiality. That can't be a reason we're afraid to take action. We don't allow people to work from heights without fall protection. We don't allow them to work around energized electrical gear without arc flash protection. We don't allow them to operate heavy equipment and vehicles without safety belts. We can't allow people to work with impairment or distraction. So the challenge is real. We have an opportunity to make a big difference in the lives of our workers. And what you'll see in return is that empathy being reciprocated. They'll look out for one another. Their engagement at work, their productivity, their satisfaction will improve. We'll have less turnover. We'll become that employer of choice. And more importantly, as an industry, we can be proud that we do build America. So what I wanted to share with you is a set of articles will be released by Callie and this organization. Will share resources from the Construction Users Roundtable. I've done a quarterly series of articles. A big shout out to my friend Kathy Dobson. She's going to be the guest writer on the next issue. It's going to talk about musculoskeletal injuries and the impact on worker well-being. I wanted people to know as well, this caring culture, AGC's taken it to the next level. Shout out to AGC of Washington, but AGC overall. This culture of care is real. This was my tool of how I've been building and addressing mental health in the workplace. We can share this with you as a flip book. We can share it as a PDF. I just wanted you to know that there are resources. And then I'm going to pass this back to Michael for any questions. I'm seeing that there might be some there. Panelists, I hope you'll take the majority of those questions. Thank you for allowing me to be part of this group today. Really, really proud of all the things you've done.
Thank you, Cal. And thank you again to all of our panel members. So I'm taking a look. I see a lot of positive comments in our chat. Not seeing any particular questions jumping out at us yet. Does anybody have any questions they would like to pose to any of our panel members? Now would be the time. Do appreciate the positive comments. And yes, mental health does need to be top down and bottoms up, similar to OSHA's S&H management systems document.
Michael, I'd like to make one comment. I see people asking for more information on the working minds.
Yes,
I have
please.
that as a PDF. I'll send that to Kelly, and I want to get you the most current information. So she'll send that out with the remainder of the information today.
Thank you. Yes, and let's note that in addition to anything that gets sent out with any of the information, we will have it available on our website. So the SLC3 website, anybody would be able to go there and find it within our resources.
And Kelly's already a couple steps ahead. She's already included links to some of those well-being articles.
We appreciate Kelly and all she does for our organization. Any questions or comments?
Mike, this is Sal Valadez.
How are you, Sal?
Very good. Great discussion today. And I really like the way that well-being is tied into everything having to do with our workforce, especially the challenges that we have had historically in terms of diversity. And I was wondering if any of the panelists, diversity, equity, and inclusion, could either share resources to address the issues that our ethnic and racial workers face in the workplace that affect their mental health in terms of harassment and bullying, and any comments or suggestions in that direction, I'd appreciate.
Thank you, Sal. That's a very good question to be posing to everyone here today. Certainly, it's a topic of interest and something that we're very concerned with and is very pertinent to this subject. So does anyone have a response for Sal?
Yes, Sal, this is Bo Cooper at Alberici. We have a strong policy against harassment, bullying on our job sites, and we look for it. We also break it down and spell out what that could look like to the workers during a site-specific orientation. So we define what it is and what we do about it, but we also try to make it relatable so that the people that come on our project know what it looks like, what it sounds like, and what to do if they perceive it. Just as a side note, one of the outreaches I did with suicide prevention and construction, large project in Atlanta, Georgia, the entire workforce was Hispanic and did not speak English very well. We used a translator, and I gave the talk for about 5-10 minutes through a translator, and they all were nodding their heads and clapping or whatever. So we made sure that we had the message out about this important topic, at least this one, for that audience there on that project.
Thank you, Bo.
This is Shannon. At PERIC, our HR department works really hard on culture of care with diversity and inclusion this year. And one of the things that came from this for me personally was we put a board up and had people write a message on it of what made them feel like they might not be included or what affected them. And some of the messages that were written on that board, and they also produced a little video that showed people holding a sign with a question on it, or having them ask a question or saying what affected them and how they were affected either through diversity or what it might be. And I mean, I'll share one of the messages that was very surprising to me. It was about being a single mother and how that affects work-life balance. You know, so it doesn't have to be anything that we think. I would have never thought of that. So those kind of messages touched me. Another one that was shared was not feeling like coming to company events, family events, because they had a special needs child and worrying about what people might think. Those kind of things touched a lot of people at Perrick. And I thought it was a great program that we put together to show the differences in what diversity and inclusion means throughout the company, whether it be minority status or things like that. So that's some of the stuff that we've done, and our HR department's done a great job with, and we will continue to work with through our culture of care and our well-being.
Thanks, Shannon.
Rick,
Cal?
Yes, thank you.
All right.
Ricky, you go ahead. And then
You
I'll
know, what I
follow
was
you.
saying is we had done some roundtables, similar to what Shannon said. We've done some roundtables, committees, really getting employees' feedback. And what we were looking for is some things we know of why are these numbers so high in the construction industry? Why do we see so many mental health issues? Do we see the suicide rates being what they be? And we wanted to get that feedback directly from employees. And we know the things that we talk about long hours and travel time and inconsistent work shifts and timeline pressures and all these other things that we kind of outline. But one of those as well is bullying, a thing that came up on the list quite a bit. The construction sites can be a tough place. And that's if you maybe look like the rest of the construction site. But from a diversity standpoint, we got a lot of feedback back from whether that be minorities, foreign, women, where they said at times they felt like, you know, as we mentioned, that tough guy mentality of construction sites. There were several women that noted that they felt maybe more pressure to be that than men, that they had a negative connotation going against them already on a construction site as not being as tough as the guys, if you will. So they maybe felt even more reluctant to share their feelings or their problems or their issues. And the same way with some of the minority employees that mentioned the fact that they may be one of the few minorities on a project and less likely to speak up or ask for help. So I think it was a really eye-opening for us from the comments we got back from our committees on some of those additional strains that can be on minorities on the job site.
Yeah, really good examples from each of the panelists. One thing that we see are disparities for gender, race, even differences by geography of where people live, urban versus rural. Some of it's access to care, but some of them are what are called the social determinants of health. And you could call those social determinants of mental health and well-being. Where you live and where you work are big influencers overall in your well-being. Access to transportation is another factor. It's hard. Access to childcare continues to be a challenge in our industry. But I would say a couple of things that I've seen AGC in particular do. It's the focus around D&I and this culture of care. I'm seeing that really be effective. I came to St. Louis for the HR conference in October. We did a session on mental health and D&I. We said these are the invisible traits where people do feel excluded, where people do feel discriminated against. A couple of things came out of that. There's a phrase that we're just learning about in our industry, but it's called neurodiversity. And it normally reflects folks who live on an area of a spectrum. And it could be things like Asperger's, it could be autism, it could be ADHD. For example, those are diagnoses. I don't normally like to go there because I'm not a clinician, I'm a risk and safety professional, but this concept of neurodiversity, when we have that sensitivity about people having individual talents, finding a place to fit them in. So two things real quickly. There's a gentleman in the industry named Brent Darnell. If you've not had Brent as a guest, he is a specialist in emotional intelligence in the construction industry. He's gifted and proud to consider him a friend. And I wanted to share with you as well, there's a group called the Construction Progress Coalition. I think your panel would really enjoy meeting them. A gentleman named Nathan Wood was one of the leaders of that. And they are a group of IT technology specialists, leaders in the industry driving innovation and change. Through the pandemic, they did a monthly roundtable on mental health topics, and they've been marrying mental health and D&I around culture of belonging. I'll share information with Callie maybe later today or tomorrow. And Callie, that could be something that you send out as well. Sorry for that long-winded answer. The last thing would be accessibility also. I want to share with you a gentleman who works for the Carpenters International Training Campus in Las Vegas. He shared with me that he was visually impaired, and he had a job for 17 years that was intimidating to me as someone who does a lot of public speaking. He hopped on planes and trains, and no one would have known he had that barrier. And what he said was, the barriers are not only external, sometimes they're self-perceived. And so I think when we break down these barriers today, people can be their best selves at work. So thank you for that great question on diversity.
Thank you, Cal. As I want to add one thing, if I will, and it kind of fits in with everything that was just said here by all of our panelists. It's when we have a diverse workforce, inclusion is important. So how do we have inclusion? Because none of us have shared backgrounds, right? Whether you lived one person in the city, one person in the country, what your racial ethnicity is, what your family background, religious upbringing, it all impacts who we are as people. So it's starting that conversation. Talk to your workers, talk to your colleagues, talk to friends, find out what's going on with them and what they feel and what impacts they see, so that we can take those into consideration on our job sites and make sure that we're being as inclusive and understanding as possible. Now, I also have a question in the chat from Steve Lewis. Well-being has been significantly affected during the past 2 years due to the COVID pandemic. How can we improve the culture of companies to support the total well-being of the employee? And I'll open that up.
Does one of the panelists, do you want to take that first, or do you want me to jump in?
I think this one is yours, Cal.
All right, thank you very much. From a cultural standpoint, being empathetic is powerful. I called it the secret sauce before. So one way of changing culture is to recognize it's a journey, to not wait for something to be perfect before you take baby steps. I like to suggest bringing in someone to meet with the leadership team and to do kind of a quick culture gap analysis. Where are we at? What are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? Doesn't have to be overly complicated, but identify, hey, what is our level of outreach? What's our level of understanding? There are more companies doing pulse surveys. So that's a great way to do a quick culture check to understand what's that total employee experience. And then what gaps do we have? If you get good participation, 70+% response, you'd feel pretty good about that. You have to do the field too, not just the office staff. But I think a deliberate strategy during these tough times of communication, of having a forward vision, letting people know we hear you, we see you, we know times are tough, being sensitive, having one-on-one conversations with as many employees as possible is a great way, and really doubling down your effort to promote your employee assistance program, using wallet cards, using those posters. The example that was given by Bo of the QR code, those are all simple ways of people seeing that you're walking the talk. If all we do is talk and they don't see the action, then it doesn't feel as genuine or as sincere. So you know how hard culture change is, but it does take a vision and it takes a strategy, and then it takes execution, and then it takes evaluation and follow-up. And that's where the continuous culture improvement process begins. I hope that's helpful.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Cal.
Cal.
Go ahead, Mike.
Okay. No, please, I just wanted to say thank you. So if you have something to add, Shannon?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
So a couple of other comments that I do want to share. Brandy Shear has stated that if anyone is in need of assistance with culture checks, to please reach out to her and that she can connect you with a quality resource. And Sal has questioned again. Let's see, maybe we could identify shared values of the workforce and the workplace. I think that's something that comes down to an organizational impact, where each organization would have to look at internally with their people. Anybody may have another opinion on that. Feel free to share. And I also see Brandon Anderson has his hand up. So Brandon, please.
Well, thanks, Mike. I just wanted to say first, thank you to the panel and to Cal and to Kelly and everyone putting this on. This has been great from what I've been able to join and hear. From an AGC of Missouri standpoint, Cal mentioned a few things, so did Bo, regarding pocket cards and QR codes and various marketing tools. We have at AGC of Missouri on our website a tremendous amount of tools, posters, the Hope coins, as many are aware of, that are free to everyone. Job site banners, I have quite a few of those printed and available. And from a Toolbox Talk standpoint, more than willing to come anywhere and anywhere to support your organizations and talk to your crews about this topic. So again, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Brandon. I encourage anyone who's interested to reach out to Brandon to, utilize the resources that we have offered to us, and he's making them available. Take him up on that. So if there are no other questions or remarks at this time, I'm going to turn everything back over to Kelly Jackson, our executive leader here. So Kelly, if you will.
Time, and I like to keep us on time as much as possible. Well, obviously, I know all of you feel that you have a lot to take away. This is, it touches home for so many people. It touches home for me personally as well. So hopefully there's a lot of takeaways. I do want to thank Michael Hargrave, obviously, for being our wonderful chair of our committee, but also to moderate this. It's always critical that we have a moderator that can handle this topic, and Michael, you're perfect for it. So appreciate that. Obviously, thank you to our speakers today. Cal, thanks for being here. It's great to meet you. You have an amazing history, background, and expertise, and I so appreciate you being here today. Ricky and Bo and Shannon, obviously your stories have been touching, and really appreciate you sharing that. It is vulnerable, and it's not always very easy to do. So I really appreciate you being here as well. I obviously want to thank PERIC for sponsoring our program today. I also want to thank the AGC and Brandon for obviously helping us put this together. They're always our partner, and so know that we really appreciate them. And then of course, do check out our website too. Also for the PDH LUs, that's always on the resource page. And then social media, when you see our posts, please share them, like them, comment. That helps us spread the word on the things that we're doing. And of course, what you see in front of you, please take this survey. It would be wonderful if you go ahead and all you have to do is use your phone, get that code, and take the survey. It does come through email. We're getting a small response normally, and we really want all of your feedback so that we can continually make these better and get your input. It's really important to us. So again, thank you for being with us this morning. This is a critical topic. I know you probably have a lot of work ahead of you to institute programs if you don't already have one or improve them. So I appreciate everyone being here, and you have a great rest of the week and a great weekend ahead. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.